If you talk all the time, you'll never hear what anybody else has to say. Therefore, all you'll have to talk about is your own conversation. The same is true for people who think all the time. The constant chit-chat of symbols and images and talk and words inside your skull. Now, if you do that all the time, you'll find that you've nothing to think about except thinking. And just as you have to stop talking to hear what others have to say, you have to stop thinking to find out what life is about. And the moment you stop thinking, you become into immediate contact with what Korzybski called, so delightfully, the unspeakable world, the non-verbal world. Some people would call it the physical world. But these words, physical, non-verbal, material, are all conceptual and is not a concept. So when you are awake to that world, you suddenly find that all the so-called differences between self and other, life and death, pleasure and pain, are all conceptual, and they're not there. They don't exist at all. When the old master Yakujo was asked, "What is Zen?" he said, "When hungry, eat. When tired, sleep." But they said, "Well, isn't that what everybody does? Aren't you just like ordinary people?" Oh, he said, "No, they don't do anything of the kind. When they're hungry, they don't just eat, they think of all sorts of things. When they're tired, they don't just sleep, but dream all sorts of dreams." We have been running around far too much. It's all right. We've been active, and our action has achieved a lot of good things. But as Aristotle pointed out long ago, and this is one of the good things about Aristotle, he said the goal of action is contemplation. In other words, busy, 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 but what's it all about? Especially when people are busy because they think they're going somewhere. They're going to get something and attain something. There's quite a good deal of point to action if you know you're not going anywhere. If you act like you dance, or like you sing, or play music, then you're not going anywhere. You're just doing pure action. But if you act with the thought in mind that as a result of action, you are eventually going to arrive at some place where everything will be all right, then you are on a squirrel cage, hopelessly condemned to what the Buddhists call samsara, the round or rat race of birth and death. Because you think you're going to get somewhere. You're already there. But the point is that one cannot act creatively except on the basis of stillness. Sound. Comes a point when the sound is taken away.
There is beneath all our cleverness a quiet faculty that no machine can mimic. It is the art of listening to what is not being said. When you step into a room, something stirs long before language begins. You can sense who holds the center of gravity, who hides behind a polite expression, who aches to be seen without daring to say so. This is not analysis. It is awareness, older than the mind itself. It is the body knowing before the mind interferes. Modern life teaches us to speak quickly, to think sharply, to fill every silence with words. But the more noise we make, the more we lose the subtle music underneath it all. Social intelligence is not the power to persuade or impress. It is the quiet attunement to the living current flowing between human beings. When you move from this stillness, others do not merely hear you, they resonate with you. For connection is not made through speech, but through the shared silence beneath it. Most of what passes between human beings is never spoken. The real conversation happens in the pauses, in the soft currents that flow beneath the surface of words. Think of a moment when someone said, "I'm fine," but you felt they weren't. No evidence, no argument, just a quiet knowing in your chest. Or the way a friend's silence felt heavier than any explanation could be. This is where social intelligence lives. Not in clever speeches, but in the spaces between them. We've built a culture that worships language. The louder, the sharper, the better. We teach people to talk, but seldom to listen. And when silence arrives, most grow restless, as though something essential has gone missing. But silence isn't absence. Silence is the ground from which real connection grows. Words are like ripples on water. They reveal movement, but the depth is felt below. When you learn to sense beneath words, you begin to hear the tremor behind a laugh, the hesitation before a yes, the small griefs tucked inside ordinary sentences. To be socially intelligent is to allow yourself to feel these undercurrents without rushing to fix or explain them. It's to be present enough for another person to exhale, not because you solved their problem, but because they finally felt understood. Real connection doesn't happen in speeches. It happens in the quiet recognition that two human beings are breathing the same moment. To move with grace among others, one must first learn the quiet art of knowing oneself. Social intelligence is not a mask you wear to impress. It begins with the stillness within you, the inner compass. When you are at odds with your own emotions, everything outside becomes distorted. A simple look may feel like judgment, a silence like rejection. But when you begin to understand your own tides, anger, fear, longing, joy, you no longer drown in them, you float. And from that calm water, it becomes possible to see others clearly. Emotional intelligence is that inner compass. It's the ability to feel a storm inside witut being swept away. But a compass alone is not enough. A sailor who never looks outward will lose the shore. Social intelligence is the map, the ability to navigate the subtle landscapes of other hearts. Every person carries their own weather. Some arrive like sunlight, others like quiet rain. When your inner compass is steady, you can sense their changing skies without confusing them for your own. You begin to notice the tremor in someone's breath, the way their words don't always match their eyes. And rather than reacting, you respond. This is the balance, to know where you stand within and to walk gently in the world without. One keeps you anchored, the other lets you travel far. To read another person is not to pry into them, nor to decode them like a puzzle. It is to stand quietly at the edge of their being and allow yourself to feel the ripples they make in the world. Most people imagine communication as something that happens through words, but the body speaks long before the mouth does. A slight tightening around the eyes, the way someone inhales before answering, the small delay before a smile. All these are little doorways into the unspoken. And you don't need special training to notice them. You only need to stop rushing past what is already there. We live in an age that values quick answers, fast replies, and clever remarks. But the art of reading people belongs to a slower rhythm. It happens when you allow your mind to quiet, your eyes to soften, your presence to stretch beyond your own thoughts. And in that stillness, something extraordinary occurs. People begin to reveal themselves, not because you force them to, but because they feel seen. They feel you're listening. To read people is not to control or manipulate. It's to listen with the whole of your being. To notice when a voice trembles, but the words remain strong. To sense when a silence is tender and when it is full of pain. You don't interpret them, you meet them. The moment you truly see another person, not through the fog of your own judgments, but through quiet attention, something shifts in the air between you. It's almost invisible, like the faint change in temperature before rain. This is where trust begins. Not in grand gestures or elaborate promises, but in the simple human recognition. I am being felt. I am not alone in here. People don't trust because of what you say. They trust because, for a brief moment, they sense that their inner world has been noticed without being handled. It is the rare experience of being understood without being interrupted. This kind of presence is not decoration, it's foundation. When someone feels seen at this level, defenses soften. The walls they spent years building loosen, even just a little. And from that quiet opening, trust begins to take root. Not as an agreement, but as a shared silence between two human beings. Trust is a strange thing. You cannot demand it, you cannot force it, and you cannot bargain for it. It grows the way dawn arrives, slowly, without announcement. Real influence does not belong to the loudest voice in the room, but to the presence that others feel is steady. You've seen it before. Someone speaks softly, and yet the room listens. Not because their words are dazzling, but because people can sense something beneath them. A quiet ground, a sincerity that asks for nothing. Social intelligence isn't about persuading people to bend to your will. It is the art of becoming someone others feel safe to open their world to. Trust is built not through clever arguments, but through the simple consistency of presence. When you truly listen, not to reply, not to prove, but simply to be there, people recognize it immediately. It touches something older than logic. It says, I see you, I'm not here to fix you, I'm here to be with you. And from that trust, influence flows on its own. Not as pressure, but as gravity. Gentle, invisible, effortless. A tree does not convince you of its shade. You simply walk toward it because it stands where it has always stood. So it is with trust. Influence is not the storm. It is the still air that gathers people without a word. Long before we learn to speak, we learn to feel one another. Long before we built cities and systems, we gathered around firelight, reading the flicker in someone's eyes more easily than the words that came after. Connection is not a modern skill. It is the oldest language we share. The rhythm of another's breath, the tremor in their voice, the heaviness or lightness of their silence. Your body knows how to read this. It always has. It is not something you learn so much as something you remember. Modern life often makes us forget. We build walls of analysis, of speed, of distraction. But beneath it all, your nervous system is still listening, still tuning itself to the quiet music between people. When someone is in pain, a part of you aches. When someone laughs, something in you softens. This isn't sentimentality. It is the design of being human. We are wired to connect the way trees lean toward light. And when you allow yourself to trust that instinct, to sense before you speak, to feel before you explain, your interactions become less about control and more about attunement. In that space, conversation turns into something older than language. Two beings remembering they were never truly separate. We live in an age where noise has become the default setting, not just the restless noise of the world, but the chatter inside the mind that never seems to rest. Everyone is speaking. Few are listening. And in that endless exchange of words, presence is lost. Presence isn't a performance. It isn't about perfect posture, nodding at the right time or pretending to be calm. It's the art of being here fully, without rehearsing what comes next. You felt it before. When someone looks at you, not past you. When their attention doesn't wander. When you feel in the marrow of your being that in this moment you don't have to explain yourself. Their silence is not empty. It is spacious. In a world so addicted to distraction, presence has become rare and therefore powerful. It slows the rhythm of conversation. It turns noise into music. It allows the small, quiet truths in people to rise to the surface without being drowned out. Machines may outthink us, but they cannot be with us. They cannot offer the kind of stillness that makes another human exhale. Presence is not something you build. It's something you stop covering up. And when you offer that kind of space to others, they recognize it immediately. Not with their intellect, but with their soul. What binds us most deeply is rarely spoken. The most honest conversations are carried in the eyes, in the tilt of the head, in the rhythm of a breath shared between two people who need not explain themselves. Empathy isn't a technique. It is the simple act of standing beside another human being without rushing to correct or repair their experience. It is the art of feeling with, not fixing for. When someone is grieving, words often fall short, but a steady hand, a soft gaze, or a quiet presence can speak with a language older than speech itself. We often imagine that influence comes from great speeches or brilliant arguments, yet more often it comes from the silent way we meet another person's heart. To be empathetic is not to drown in another's feeling. It is to let your presence become wide enough to hold it gently, as a river holds the reflection of the moon, without grasping, without claiming, without needing to change it. But empathy without ground becomes a flood. If you lean too far into another's storm, you may lose your footing. And when that happens, compassion turns to confusion, listening turns to reaction. This is where many people falter, not because they don't care, but because they haven't yet learned to stand firm in the winds they invite. To offer true presence is not to carry someone else's pain as your own. It is to hold space for it without becoming it, like a tree that bends but does not break. And it is in these moments, when emotions grow heavy, that the quiet art of emotional mastery begins. Not as control, but as a return to center. From empathy, we step gently into strength. Conflict in itself is not the enemy. It is simply a moment when two worlds meet and neither wishes to disappear. Most people treat conflict as a battlefield, rushing to defend their position, to prove themselves right. But the wise approach it as a mirror. What unsettles us in another often touches something unsteady within ourselves. When anger rises, when pride stiffens the spine, when the voice grows sharp, that is not the moment to conquer the other. It is the moment to return to stillness. Emotional mastery does not mean suppressing feeling. It means meeting it like an old friend who has come to deliver a message. If you can remain steady, when your chest tightens, when your breath grows shallow, you will find that conflict loses its teeth. Your stillness becomes the calm center around which the storm turns. And from this place, listening returns. The other person no longer feels they are fighting against you, but being heard by you. And when listening enters a room, truth becomes possible again. To master emotion is not to harden against life. It is to stand in its waves without losing your balance. When one of you remains anchored, the quarrel slowly remembers its humanity, and what began as tension becomes an opening. What follows is not victory or defeat, but quiet. The air between you no longer strains under the weight of opposing wills. It loosens. A calm begins to shape itself in the space where resistance once lived. This is the quiet strength that does not need to announce itself. When you remain steady in the storm, you become something people lean toward without quite knowing why. It isn't about being wiser or stronger. It's about not leaving yourself. Others may raise their voices, their defenses, their fears, but your stillness does not mirror their storm, like the riverbank beside a rushing current. You give shape to the moment without trying to control the water. In that kind of presence, something in the other person begins to settle too. People rarely remember arguments in detail, but they remember how they felt when they stood near someone who did not fight them back. Safety is not a speech. It's a felt thing, quiet, wordless, and unmistakable. To become a safe space is not to fix others. It is simply to be a place where their walls can rest, where their breath can drop a little lower into the body. And when you carry that steadiness into the world, you stop trying to win people over. They come closer on their own. True social intelligence is not a set of tricks or polished performances. It is not how well you speak, how charming you sound, or how quickly you think. It is the quiet art of being so fully yourself that others feel free to be themselves too. All the techniques, reading people, building trust, mastering emotion, they are only different doors that lead back to the same place, presence. The presence that listens more than it explains. The presence that steadies rather than reacts. The presence that does not need to win to be strong. When people leave your company, they will not replay your perfect sentences. They will remember how they felt around you, whether they could breathe a little easier, whether they felt seen, whether they felt safe. And that is the real power here, not to shine above others, but to become a space where they no longer need to defend themselves. Social intelligence is not learned in books alone. It is remembered in the silence between words, in the calm between storms, in the stillness you carry inside. When you embody that, you no longer need to try to connect. Connection happens on its own.
You know, there's a peculiar kind of exhaustion that comes not from physical labor or even from emotional strain, but from the sheer relentless noise of your own thinking, the mind that simply will not stop, the constant commentary, the endless analysis, the perpetual conversation with yourself about yourself. And the strangest part of it all is that the more you try to quiet it down, the louder it seems to get. It's like trying to smooth water by slapping it. The very effort creates more disturbance. Now, most people assume that a busy mind is a sign of intelligence, of being thoughtful, of being engaged with life. We celebrate the thinker, don't we? We admire the person who's always analyzing, always questioning, always working things out in their head. But here's what nobody tells you. There's a difference between thinking and being trapped in thought. There's a difference between using your mind as a tool and being used by your mind as a prison. And if you're honest with yourself, you know what I'm talking about. You know that feeling of lying in bed at night while your mind rehearses conversations that haven't happened yet, replays conversations that already did, analyzes every little thing you said or didn't say, should have said, might say tomorrow. You know that experience of sitting in a beautiful place, surrounded by everything you thought you wanted, and barely being present for any of it because your mind is somewhere else entirely, chewing on some problem, spinning some story, lost in some elaborate maze of its own construction. The mind won't shut up because, and here's the paradox, you keep asking it to. You see, every time you tell yourself to stop thinking, what are you doing? You're thinking about not thinking. You're using thought to try to eliminate thought. It's like trying to use fire to put out fire. The very attempt is the problem. The thinker trying to stop thinking is itself a thought. So the mind just keeps going, now thinking about why it's thinking about how to stop thinking about how tired it is of thinking. And so it spirals. You notice your mind is busy and you judge it. You shouldn't be thinking so much. You should be more present. You should be more peaceful, more mindful, more Zen. And now you're thinking about not thinking, judging yourself for thinking, planning how to think less, analyzing why you think so much. The mind has taken the project of quieting itself and turned it into just another thing to think about, another problem to solve, another way to keep itself busy. But here's what's really happening underneath all of this mental noise. The mind won't shut up because it's terrified, absolutely terrified. Of what, you ask? Of nothing. Literally. The mind is terrified of the gap, the space, the moment of no thought. Because the mind, you see, thinks it is you. It believes that if it stops, you stop. If there's no thought, there's no self. So it keeps generating content, keeps producing commentary, keeps the stream going at all costs because silence feels like death to the thinking mind. Think about it. When was the last time you experienced a genuine gap in thinking? And I don't mean sleep. I don't mean being knocked unconscious. I mean a moment of waking awareness where there simply was no thought, no commentary, no analysis, no planning, no remembering, just pure perception without interpretation. For most people, these moments are incredibly rare, fleeting, accidental, a sudden shock, a moment of awe, a split second before thought catches up with experience. And if you've had even one of these moments, you know something profound. You didn't disappear. You were still there. In fact, you were more there, more present, more alive than you are when the mind is running its constant show. But the mind doesn't trust this. The mind is convinced that it needs to keep narrating your life or else there won't be a life to narrate. It's like a radio that's terrified of being turned off. So it keeps broadcasting static rather than risk silence. And you've identified so completely with the broadcast that you think you are the static. You think the noise is you. So of course you can't turn it off. You'd be turning yourself off. This is why meditation is so difficult for most people. They sit down with the intention of quieting the mind, and the mind immediately goes into overdrive, because now it's been directly challenged. Now there's a you trying to control it, and it responds by getting louder, more insistent, more chaotic. It throws everything at you. Memories, plans, itches, philosophical questions, random songs, shopping lists, anything and everything to keep the show going. And you sit there fighting with it, trying to push thoughts away, and the more you push, the more they push back. Here's another paradox for you. The mind won't shut up because you want it to shut up. Your desire for a quiet mind is itself a form of mental noise. It's the mind complaining about itself, critiquing itself, trying to improve itself. It's thought trying to eliminate thought. So the wanting becomes just another layer of thinking. Now you're not just thinking, you're thinking about thinking, judging your thinking, trying to stop thinking, and feeling like a failure because you can't stop thinking. The original problem has multiplied, and we've created entire industries around this, haven't we? Mindfulness apps, meditation retreats, books on how to quiet your mind, courses on being present, all of which can be helpful, certainly. But notice what often happens. The mind takes these tools and turns them into just another project, another thing to achieve, another way to measure yourself, another standard you're failing to meet. You're not just a person with a busy mind anymore. Now you're a person who's failing at meditation, who can't even do mindfulness right, who's so hopeless that even when you're trying to be present, you're thinking about whether you're being present correctly. The thinking never stops because we've made thinking into our primary mode of being. We think about what we're going to do, then we do it while thinking about whether we're doing it right. Then we think about what we did and whether we should have done it differently. We think about the past with regret. We think about the future with anxiety. And we miss the present entirely because we're too busy thinking about it to actually be in it. And the content of the thinking, it doesn't even matter most of the time. It's not like you're solving profound problems or having brilliant insights. Most of it is just repetitive loops. The same worries recycled in slightly different forms. The same stories told and retold. The same arguments rehearsed. The same plans made and revised. It's like watching the same movie over and over, and not even a good movie, just an anxious, repetitive, self-absorbed drama starring you as both the hero and the villain and the critic reviewing the performance. But here's what's really exhausting about it. The mind that won't shut up is also the mind that won't commit. It can't fully engage with anything because it's always partially somewhere else. You're in one conversation while thinking about another conversation. You're doing one task while planning the next task. You're experiencing one moment while comparing it to past moments or imagining future moments. You're never fully anywhere because your attention is fractured across time, split between what was, what is, and what might be. And people sense this about you, even if they can't name it. They sense that you're not fully present, that part of you is always elsewhere, always distracted, always thinking about something other than what's right in front of you. And this creates a kind of loneliness, doesn't it? Because even when you're with people, even when you're supposedly connecting, there's this gap, this distance, this sense that you're not really there. You're performing being there while your mind is running its endless program somewhere in the background.
Before we continue, many of you have been asking for something longer, something with actual practices you can use in daily life. So check out the 3-hour audiobook that takes everything we explore in these videos and gives you the tools to actually work with it. Because here's the thing, intellectual understanding without practical application just keeps you spinning in your head. You need both, the insight and the practice, the philosophy and the daily work that makes it real. This audiobook gives you that. 3 hours of deep wisdom with practices built in, so you're not just thinking differently, you're living differently. If you're serious about changing how you experience your life, the link is in the description below. Now, let's continue.
So what do you do about a mind that won't shut up? Well, here's where it gets interesting. You don't do anything about it. And this is perhaps the greatest paradox of all. The solution to the problem of the busy mind is to stop trying to solve it. The way to quiet the mind is to stop trying to quiet it, because the trying is the noise. The effort to fix yourself is what's broken. You see, the mind isn't actually a problem. It never was. The problem is your relationship with the mind. You think you're supposed to control it, manage it, optimize it, quiet it, but that's like trying to control the weather. The mind does what minds do. It thinks. It produces thoughts the way the heart produces beats and the lungs produce breaths. Thoughts arise. This is natural. This is what minds are for. The suffering doesn't come from the thoughts themselves. It comes from your relationship with the thoughts, from believing them, identifying with them, taking them as truth, taking them as you. When a thought arises that says you're not good enough, you don't have to believe it. You don't have to identify with it. You don't have to take it personally. It's just a thought, a pattern of neural activity, a wave in the ocean of consciousness. It arises and it passes, and you, the awareness that notices it, you remain. But we've been taught to take thoughts very seriously. We've been taught that what we think is who we are, that our thoughts are our identity. So when we have an anxious thought, we become an anxious person. When we have a depressive thought, we become a depressed person. When we have a mean thought, we become a bad person. We collapse the space between the awareness and the content of awareness. We identify with the passing weather and forget we're the sky. Here's what I want you to understand. You are not your thoughts. You never were. You are the space in which thoughts appear. You are the awareness that knows thoughts are happening. And this awareness, this consciousness, it doesn't have a busy mind. It doesn't have any mind at all. It's prior to mind, deeper than mind, more fundamental than mind. The thoughts come and go in you, but you don't come and go. You're the constant. You're what remains when thoughts arise and when thoughts disappear. And here's the beautiful thing. When you recognize this, when you shift your identity from the content of consciousness to consciousness itself, the thoughts don't stop, but they lose their grip. They become like clouds passing through the sky. Sometimes there are many clouds, sometimes few, sometimes none. But the sky doesn't worry about the clouds. The sky doesn't try to push them away or hold them in place. The sky just is, spacious and open, allowing whatever appears to appear and whatever disappears to disappear. This is what it means to have a quiet mind. Not a mind with no thoughts, but a mind you're no longer struggling with. Not a mind you've controlled, but a mind you've stopped trying to control. The paradox is that the mind becomes quiet when you stop trying to make it quiet. The noise settles when you stop resisting the noise, because the resistance is the noise. The struggle is the disturbance. When you stop fighting with your mind, when you stop judging it, managing it, trying to improve it, there's a natural settling. Like a snow globe that's been shaken. You don't make the snow settle. You just stop shaking it and the settling happens by itself. But here's what this requires. It requires you to be willing to have a busy mind, to let the thoughts be there without making them a problem, to allow the mental chatter without needing it to stop. And this feels counterintuitive, doesn't it? Because you think you want a quiet mind, but wanting a quiet mind is what keeps the mind busy. So instead, you try the opposite. You welcome the busy mind, you say yes to it, you stop fighting it, and in that acceptance, in that allowing, something shifts. The mind is still producing thoughts, but you're no longer caught in them. You're no longer believing that the thoughts are you or that they're telling you the truth about reality. This is what meditation is really about, by the way. It's not about achieving some special state of no thought. It's about changing your relationship with thought. It's about learning to observe thinking without being thinking, to witness the mind without being the mind. You sit there and thoughts arise, thousands of them. And you don't push them away and you don't chase them. You just notice them. Oh, there's a thought about what I'm having for dinner. Oh, there's a thought about what that person said yesterday. Oh, there's a thought judging my meditation. And in the noticing, there's a gap, a space. You're here, aware, watching the thoughts, which means you're not the thoughts, you're what's watching. And the more you practice this, the more you live from this place of awareness rather than from the place of thought, the less the busy mind bothers you. Not because the mind gets less busy, but because you stop identifying with the business. You recognize that you're the space, not the furniture. You're the screen, not the movie. You're the ocean, not the waves. And the waves can be stormy or calm, but the ocean remains the ocean either way. Here's another angle on this. The mind won't shut up because it's trying to figure everything out. It believes that if it just thinks hard enough, long enough, cleverly enough, it will finally understand. It will finally solve the puzzle of existence. It will finally figure out how to be happy, how to be safe, how to be loved, how to be enough. So it keeps thinking, keeps analyzing, keeps trying to find the answer that will finally put all the questions to rest. But the answer isn't in thought. It can't be. Because thought is always about something. It's always pointing at reality, describing reality, interpreting reality. But it's never the reality itself. You can think about an apple all day long, describe it in the most elaborate detail, but you still won't know what an apple tastes like until you bite into it. The taste is direct, immediate, beyond thought, and life is like that. The actual living of it, the immediate experience of being here, being alive, being aware, this isn't something you can think your way into. You can only be it. So the mind keeps chattering because it's trying to do something it's inherently unable to do. It's trying to think its way to a reality that exists before and beyond thinking. And this is why the silence, the gap, the moment of no thought, this is where the real knowing happens. Not intellectual knowing, but direct knowing. The knowing of being, of presence, of what you actually are beneath all the stories and concepts and identifications. And when you touch this, even for a moment, when you rest as pure awareness without any thought, you realize something extraordinary. The mind, with all its noise and business, it was never the problem. It was just doing its job, thinking. The problem was believing you were the mind, taking yourself to be this collection of thoughts and worries and plans and memories. But you're not. You never were. You're the awareness in which all of this appears, the consciousness that lights up every experience, the presence that's here right now, reading these words, aware of being aware. So if your mind won't shut up, stop trying to shut it up. Let it run, let it chatter, let it do its thing, but don't believe it, don't identify with it, don't take it to be you. Just notice it, watch it, be curious about it. Oh, look, mind is doing its anxious routine again. Oh, look, mind is replaying that old story. Oh, look, mind is planning something that probably won't happen. And in the noticing, in the observing, you're already free. Because the one who notices the thought is not the thought. The awareness of thinking is not thinking. You are that awareness. You always have been. And from this place, from this recognition, life becomes much simpler, not because your circumstances change or your mind becomes quieter, but because you're no longer at war with yourself. You're no longer trying to be different than you are. The mind thinks, the thoughts arise, and you remain as what you've always been, aware, present, here. The one constant in the midst of all the change. Not thinking about being here, not trying to be more here, just here, already, always, complete. There's a strange thing that happens to many who step onto what they call the spiritual path. It begins, as all searches do, with a feeling that something is missing, a quiet ache that ordinary life can no longer satisfy. You sense there's something deeper beneath the noise, something vast and wordless that you've somehow forgotten. So, quite innocently, you begin to look, you read books, you listen to teachers, you meditate, chant, fast, and strive. You chase stillness as though it were a prize waiting at the top of a long staircase. And you tell yourself, once I find it, I'll finally be free. But what you don't realize yet is that the very one who's seeking that freedom is the same one who feels trapped. It's like a man trying to run away from his own shadow. The faster he runs, the more it follows. That is the first trap, you see, the trap of seeking. For most people, the search begins as a reaction to discomfort. You feel restless, lost, unsatisfied, and you imagine that if only you could wake up, life would stop hurting. So you turn the search for peace into another form of struggle, a more elegant kind of ambition. You no longer chase success or status. Now you chase enlightenment. But the movement is the same. The seeker and the businessman, the ascetic and the addict, both are running from the same unease. And so long as you keep seeking, you confirm the very absence you're trying to escape. You say, I am not yet whole. I must find something to complete me. But wholeness was never something to find. It was the silence that was looking. The irony, of course, is that you don't stop seeking because you fail, you stop because you finally exhaust yourself. You grow tired of chasing experiences, tired of comparing your peace to someone else's. And in that moment of giving up, the strangest thing happens. You notice that stillness was here all along. When the searching stops, awareness begins. And yet, even that realization, profound as it may be, carries its own subtle danger. Because now you begin to think, I understand, I've seen through the illusion, and you quietly start to build a new identity around it. You become the one who knows. This is the second trap, the trap of identity. You see, the ego is not destroyed by awakening. It merely changes shape. Before, it was the self that wanted wealth, pleasure, and importance. Now, it becomes the self that wants purity, stillness, and enlightenment. The same actor, just in new costume. You start saying things like, I'm learning to detach, or I no longer let things affect me. But listen closely to the tone behind those words. There's still a subtle I, a center that takes pride in its calmness. You might even begin to feel quietly superior, as though the rest of the world was still asleep while you've seen the truth. But that, too, is just another dream. The awakened ego is more dangerous than the materialistic one, because it hides its pride behind the mask of humility. You start performing spirituality, mistaking the gestures for the essence. You meditate not to be still, but to appear still. You speak softly, not out of peace, but out of control. You post quotes about detachment, all while desperately wanting to be seen as someone who has let go. And so you've traded one identity for another. You've escaped the prison of the world only to build a more beautiful cage in its place. But the soul, you see, cannot breathe in a cage, not even a golden one. True freedom doesn't arrive when you've perfected yourself. It arrives when you no longer need to. It's when you can laugh at your own seriousness, when you can say, there I go again, trying to be enlightened. Because the real awakening isn't about becoming special, it's about becoming ordinary again, without shame. Most people don't realize how exhausting the spiritual performance is. Always being aware, always monitoring your thoughts, always maintaining that serene mask. It's tiring to pretend to be peaceful all the time. And life, being infinitely patient, eventually exposes the act. One day, you lose your temper, or you cry, or you feel jealous, and suddenly you think you've failed, but you haven't failed at all. You've just become real again. When you stop trying to be the enlightened version of yourself, awareness becomes effortless, because awareness was never something you could lose. It's not a possession, it's your nature. The great mistake is thinking awakening is about improvement. It's not. It's about recognition. The difference is subtle but profound. Improvement says, I'll work on myself until I am pure. Recognition says, I see that even in my imperfection I am whole. When that recognition dawns, even your flaws begin to look sacred. And this brings us, quite naturally, to the third trap, the trap of goodness. It's easy to see why this one seduces so many. After all, what could possibly be wrong with trying to be good? You try to be kind, compassionate, understanding, and for a while, it feels right. But eventually you notice a tension behind your virtue, a quiet strain, as though you're forcing something unnatural. You smile when you don't mean it. You forgive when you still feel the sting. You tell yourself a good person wouldn't be angry. So you repress your anger and call that forgiveness. But the truth is, real goodness doesn't need to prove itself. It doesn't come from discipline. It flows from understanding. When you truly see how interconnected all things are, kindness becomes spontaneous. You don't try to be kind. You can't help it. When you're genuinely at peace, goodness happens by itself like a flower blooming in the sun. Trying to be good, on the other hand, is often just spiritual pride in disguise. You want to see yourself as virtuous, or you want others to see you that way. But the moment you say, I'm a good person,
you've already missed it. Because the moment you identify with goodness, you also create its opposite, those who are not. And so judgment quietly returns, now painted in moral colors. Real compassion, you see, doesn't divide. It doesn't say, you are asleep and I am awake. It doesn't say, I forgive you because I'm above you. It simply sees, and in that seeing, there is understanding. To be truly good, you must forget about being good. The universe doesn't moralize. It simply moves, birth and death, pleasure and pain, all part of one motion. And to awaken is to join that motion without resistance. You might still feel anger, sadness, or desire, but you no longer cling to them. You let them arise and fall like waves, without judging the tide. And slowly, you realize that goodness isn't a destination. It's what remains when you stop pretending to be better than you are. That's the hidden beauty of awakening. It strips away every identity you thought you needed, the seeker, the saint, the savior, until only life itself remains, raw and unfiltered. After all this striving to be good, after all the effort to be still, to be aware, to be pure, a quiet fatigue begins to set in. You start to wonder why, after all these meditations, affirmations, and insights, the peace never seems to stay. You've had glimpses, moments of clarity, even bliss, but they vanish as quickly as they come. And so, once again, you begin to measure. You think, maybe I'm making progress, but slowly. This is the fourth trap, the trap of progress. You see, the modern mind is trained to think in lines and ladders. Everything must be a journey upward, from ignorance to knowledge, from chaos to order, from darkness to light. But awareness doesn't move like that. It doesn't travel. It reveals. You are not climbing toward awakening, you are awakening to what has never moved. But we love the idea of progress. We like to think there's a point somewhere ahead where we'll finally arrive. So we create stages, beginner, intermediate, advanced. We measure our calmness, our mindfulness, our ability to stay present. We grade ourselves spiritually the same way we once graded ourselves in school. But can you see the irony? You've turned the infinite into a curriculum. You've taken something as boundless as consciousness and squeezed it into a chart of self-improvement. Progress assumes time, and awakening is the end of time. It's the collapse of the idea that you are on your way anywhere at all. When you truly understand that, progress loses its meaning, because in this very moment, not a future one, you are already complete. There's nothing to add, nothing to remove. Only the illusion of movement remains, yet the illusion is necessary for a while. It's part of the play. You can't rush the unlearning of effort. Even when you see through the traps, the habits remain the habit to measure, to compare, to check your level. So, what do? You simply notice it happening, and you laugh. That laughter is freedom. You stop treating awakening as an exam and start seeing it as a dance, a rhythm between remembering and forgetting. There will be days of clarity and days of confusion, moments of light and moments of darkness. But the one who sees both is untouched by either. Awakening is not about sustaining one state forever. It's about realizing that you are not the states. When you stop grading your awareness, peace sneaks up on you. It comes not because you earned it, but because you stopped resisting the way things are. And that's when the final illusion often arrives, the one most subtle and seductive of all. It's what I call the trap of escape. After seeing through the other traps, the seeking, the ego, the moral striving, the measuring, a new desire arises, the desire to transcend. You want to be done with it, all the messiness, the emotions, the pain of being human. You want to rise above it, to live only in serenity. But that desire, too, is born from resistance. It is the ego's last disguise, the one who has renounced. You might find yourself thinking, I'm no longer interested in worldly things. You avoid conflict, withdraw from people, stop engaging with the pulse of life. You call this detachment, but it's not detachment, it's avoidance. You haven't transcended the world, you've simply hidden from it. And life, with infinite compassion, won't let you stay there for long. It will send you something, a heartbreak, a loss, a sudden beauty that pulls you back into the human experience. Because you're not meant to escape the world, you're meant to embody it consciously. The ocean doesn't reject its waves, it becomes them. Enlightenment isn't floating above life, it's sinking so deeply into it that you realize there was never a separation to begin with. To awaken is to fall in love with the ordinary. To look at a cup of tea, a tired face, a passing cloud, and feel the whole universe moving there. It's to understand that your search for the divine was always a misunderstanding, because there's nothing in existence that isn't divine. The sacred was never elsewhere. It was here, hidden behind the eyes that were looking. So long as you believe enlightenment will take you out of the world, you will keep missing the holiness of being in it. The truth, you see, is far simpler. You are not here to escape the dream. You are here to wake up within it. And perhaps that's the real purpose of these traps, not to imprison you forever, but to teach you how easily you build your own walls. Every trap is also a mirror. Every illusion, a teacher in disguise. You don't need to destroy them. You only need to see them for what they are. Because the moment you recognize a trap, it loses its power. The moment you stop struggling to escape it, you're already free. Freedom isn't somewhere outside the maze. It's the realization that the walls were never real. When you truly understand that, there's nothing left to chase, nothing left to prove. Even the idea of spirituality begins to dissolve. You stop being a seeker or a knower or a teacher. You become simply alive. And in that aliveness, you notice something profound. Everything is exactly as it should be. The people still chasing, the ones pretending, the ones judging, they're all playing their parts perfectly, just as you once did. So you stop correcting them. You stop trying to wake anyone up. You just live quietly, freely, and deeply awake to the simple fact of being. That is where all paths lead, though none can take you there. Not by effort, not by method, but by the soft collapse of everything you thought you needed to do. And when that collapse finally happens, when all the striving and seeking fade, something breathtaking appears in their place. Not a grand enlightenment, not a cosmic explosion of understanding, but something humble, intimate, familiar, life. Just this, the sound of your breath, the warmth of sunlight on skin, the quiet laughter of knowing that you never had to try so hard. That's when you realize the greatest truth of all. You were never spiritually stuck. You were only pretending to be trapped so you could one day discover the joy of being free. When you've spent long enough searching for freedom, a curious thing begins to happen. You stop believing in escape. The word freedom itself begins to dissolve, because you start to see that it always implied a cage. And when the idea of a cage fades, what's left? Only openness, only life. But this doesn't feel like a sudden revelation. It doesn't arrive with trumpets or angels or cosmic fireworks. It comes quietly, like a sigh at the end of a long day, a deep exhale into what has always been here. You find yourself smiling at your own seriousness. You remember how hard you tried to meditate correctly, how you measured your breathing, your posture, your progress. You remember how you used to feel proud when you felt detached, and guilty when you felt desire. And you can't help but laugh, not mockingly, but tenderly, because you see that all of it, every attempt, every failure, every contradiction, was part of the unfolding. That laughter, that gentle self-forgiveness, is the beginning of true understanding. You realize that life never demanded perfection from you. It only asked that you live it. You were never supposed to master existence, only to experience it. And once you see that, everything relaxes. The war with yourself ends. You stop trying to control your mind, and it quiets on its own. You stop trying to force peace, and peace begins to bloom like a wildflower in the cracks of your effort. You stop pretending to be enlightened, and suddenly, even your confusion feels sacred, because you finally see you were never outside the flow, not even for a moment. The river of being carries everything, your clarity, your doubt, your laughter, your tears. Nothing is out of place. This is what I mean by letting the traps fall away. You don't need to fight them. You don't need to dismantle them one by one. You simply stop identifying with the one who was trapped. It's like waking up from a dream in which you were drowning. The moment you open your eyes, you realize there was never any water. And yet, that dream taught you something about fear, about grasping, about surrender. So you don't regret it. You just smile, stretch, and move on with your day. That's what the journey is. A long, beautiful dream of forgetting and remembering. Once the illusions fall away, something wonderful begins to happen. Not mystical or dramatic, but wonderfully simple. Ordinary moments start to shimmer again. You notice the way sunlight moves through the trees, the sound of wind brushing against leaves, the rhythm of footsteps on pavement. You begin to see how much beauty there is in things that ask for nothing, the scent of rain, a stray cat crossing the road, the quiet hum of the world going on without your interference. You start to live without trying to be aware, because awareness has become effortless. And this, you realize, is what awakening was always pointing to. Not an achievement, not a transformation, but a homecoming. You were never meant to transcend being human. You were meant to remember how divine it already is. That's the ultimate irony. You searched for transcendence only to find that what you were trying to escape was sacred all along. When you stop rejecting life, even your imperfections begin to glow. The same anger that once felt like failure now feels like energy moving through you. The sadness that once seemed unbearable now feels like depth. The emptiness that frightened you becomes a vast sky where everything can appear and disappear freely. You no longer cling to emotions as proof of identity. You no longer resist them as signs of weakness. You simply allow them, like weather passing through the open sky of awareness. And when you do that, when you truly stop judging what arises, you notice that every emotion, no matter how painful, carries a hidden tenderness. Each feeling is life reaching out, saying, "Look, you are still alive. You still feel." It's all part of the same pulse. You begin to realize that the point of spirituality was never to rise above emotion, but to become intimate with it, to hold joy and sorrow, clarity and confusion, all in the same vast embrace. That is the art of letting go. Not throwing things away, but holding them so lightly that they can dance. Now, there's something subtle that happens when you live like this. You stop taking ownership of the movement of life. You stop thinking, "I am doing this," or "I am becoming that." Instead, there's simply doing, simply being. The river moves, and you are the river. The wind blows, and you are the wind. You don't stand apart from life anymore. You are its expression. And because there's no longer a you trying to hold life together, life begins to unfold naturally, without conflict, without resistance. Things fall away when they're ready. People leave when they must. Joy comes, sorrow follows, then joy again. But now, none of it threatens you, because you no longer cling to permanence. You see that impermanence isn't the enemy of peace, it's the reason peace exists. There's a certain peace that comes not from answers, but from finally giving up the need for them. You stop demanding explanations from existence. You stop arguing with the mystery. And the mystery, for the first time, starts to feel like home. You no longer need to understand why things happen the way they do. You trust that they unfold according to a rhythm too vast for the mind to measure. That trust, that quiet faith in life, is what freedom truly is. Freedom isn't the ability to choose every path. It's the ease of walking whichever one appears before you. And in that freedom, you rediscover innocence. You begin to laugh again, not because life is easy, but because you finally stopped expecting it to be anything else. You see that your search was never for enlightenment, it was for simplicity. To be able to wake up in the morning, breathe, and know that this is enough. To eat when you're hungry, to rest when you're tired, to love without strategy, to lose without resentment, to die without regret. That is awakening in its purest form, not fireworks, not transcendence, but ease. If there is a final lesson, it's this. Nothing you let go of is ever truly lost. The illusions fall away, but the truth they disguised remains. The masks crumble, but the face beneath them has always been smiling. The traps dissolve, and you realize they were never meant to imprison you, only to teach you how not to hold on. And once you've learned that, there's nowhere left to go, and nothing left to become. There is only this, the eternal now, breathing through you. You can still meditate, still read, still teach, or pray, but not out of need. You do them as the ocean makes waves, not because it must, but because it can. The wise man still chops wood and carries water, but now he knows the one chopping, the one watching, and the one being chopped are not three, they are one. Life was never asking you to awaken. It was awakening through you, in its own time, in its own way. And perhaps, in the end, that's the only realization there is. You were never spiritually stuck. You were just unfolding. And in the moment you stop trying to move forward, you discover you were never behind. You were home all along.
You know, there's a peculiar phenomenon that occurs when someone begins to wake up, when someone starts to see through the game that everyone else is playing. And that is, they become frightening to other people. Now, why should this be? Why should clarity be threatening? Why should someone who sees deeply into the nature of things make others uncomfortable? Well, let me tell you, it's one of the most interesting aspects of human psychology. And it reveals something very profound about the way we organize our collective lives, our societies, our very sense of who we are. You see, most people are living in what I call a mutual conspiracy. We've all agreed, tacitly, unconsciously, to believe certain things about reality. We've agreed that the emperor is wearing clothes, even though he's quite naked. We've agreed that this piece of paper called money has value. We've agreed that these arbitrary lines on a map called borders are real and important. We've agreed that you are you and I am I, and we're separate, isolated individuals competing for scarce resources in a hostile universe. Now, none of these things are fundamentally true. They're conventions, agreements, useful fictions that allow us to organize society and get along with each other. But we've forgotten that they're fictions. We've mistaken the map for the territory, the menu for the meal. And we live our entire lives inside this agreed-upon hallucination, never questioning it, never looking behind the curtain. Then along comes someone who has seen through it, someone who has realized that the emperor has no clothes, someone who has awakened from the collective dream. And what does this person do? Well, if they're wise, they might say nothing at all. They might simply smile and go about their business. But even their silence, even their smile, can be deeply unsettling to others. Because you see, when you encounter someone who has seen through the game, something inside you recognizes it. Some part of you knows that they know something you've been trying very hard not to know. They represent a threat to your entire framework of reality, your entire sense of security and identity. Let me give you an example. Imagine you're in a theater, watching a film, completely absorbed in the story. You're identifying with the hero, you're afraid of the villain, you're emotionally invested in the outcome. Then someone leans over and whispers, "You know, it's just actors on a screen. None of this is real." How do you feel? Annoyed, probably. You don't want to be reminded that it's just a film. You want to stay in the illusion because the illusion is entertaining, it's engaging, it gives you something to feel strongly about. Now, multiply that by 1,000, and you begin to understand why people fear those who see too much. Because what these awakened individuals see is that everything, not just the film in the theater, but your job, your relationships, your ambitions, your fears, your entire life story is in a certain sense not as real as you think it is. It's a role you're playing, a character you're performing, a dream you're dreaming. And nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to be told that what they're taking so seriously is fundamentally a game, a play, a cosmic joke. Because if it's just a game, then what have they been doing all these years? All that striving, all that suffering, all those achievements and failures, were they for nothing? The awakened person seems to threaten the very meaning of your existence. But there's something even deeper going on. You see, our entire social structure is built on people taking the game seriously. Civilization requires that people show up to their jobs, pay their taxes, follow the rules, pursue success, fear failure, and generally behave as if all of this matters in some ultimate, absolute sense. The system needs you to be asleep, to be hypnotized, to be convinced that the symbols and abstractions we've created are real and important. Someone who has awakened from this trance is dangerous to the system. Not because they're going to rebel or cause trouble, necessarily quite the opposite. They might be perfectly content and peaceful, but their very existence, their very presence, reminds others that there's a way out of the trap. They're like someone who has escaped from prison and come back to visit. The prisoners don't want to see them because it reminds them that the prison bars are, in a sense, optional. Throughout history, we see this pattern repeating. The awakened ones, the seers, the prophets, the mystics, they're consistently marginalized, ridiculed, persecuted, or killed. Not always, of course. Sometimes they're tolerated, sometimes they're even venerated, but usually only after they're safely dead and their teachings have been domesticated and made harmless. But while they're alive, while they're actually demonstrating that another way of being is possible, they make people very nervous. Think of Socrates, who was condemned to death for corrupting the youth of Athens. What was his crime, really? He was asking questions, encouraging people to think for themselves, to examine their assumptions, to see through the conventional beliefs of society. And for this he had to drink hemlock. The authorities couldn't tolerate someone showing the young people that the emperor had no clothes. Or think of Jesus, who was crucified essentially for the same reason. He was pointing to a reality beyond the religious and political structures of his time. He was saying that the kingdom of heaven is within you, that you don't need priests or temples or elaborate rituals to connect with the divine. This was tremendously threatening to the establishment, both religious and political, because if people realized this, the whole power structure would collapse. The person who sees too much reveals something that most people desperately want to keep hidden, even from themselves. They reveal that you are not who you think you are. That little voice in your head that you call I, that anxious, worried, ambitious entity that's always trying to get somewhere or become something that's not you. That's just a thought pattern, a habit of mind, a character you've been playing for so long that you've forgotten it's a character. What you really are is much vaster, much more mysterious, much more free than this little ego identity. You are the consciousness in which all of this appears. You are not separate from the world, from the universe, from existence itself. You are what the whole cosmos is doing at this particular place and time, just as a wave is what the whole ocean is doing at a particular place and time. But this realization, this seeing, undermines everything that society has taught you about who you are and what you should be doing with your life. It undermines the whole story of progress and achievement and making something of yourself. Because if you're already it, if you're already the universe experiencing itself, then what is there to achieve? Where is there to go? Now, don't misunderstand me. The awakened person doesn't become passive or lazy or irresponsible. Quite the contrary. They often become more engaged with life, more creative, more compassionate. But they're playing the game of life knowingly, consciously, without being trapped by it. They're dancing, but they know they're dancing. And this knowledge, this freedom, is what others find so threatening. Because if you're around someone like this for any length of time, something starts to happen. The certainty you had about your beliefs begins to wobble. The stories you've been telling yourself start to sound a bit hollow. The fears and desires that have been driving you begin to lose their grip. And this is terrifying, because these beliefs, these stories, these fears and desires, they're what you've been using to navigate life. They're your map. And if the map is wrong, if it's just a fiction, then you're lost. The person who sees too much doesn't even have to say anything directly challenging. Their very being, their very presence, emanates a kind of freedom that exposes the bondage others are in. It's like someone walking around without chains in a prison where everyone else is shackled. The shackled prisoners don't feel grateful, they feel accused. They feel judged, even though no judgment is being made. This is why awakened individuals often learn to hide their light, so to speak. They learn to speak in parables and paradoxes, to couch their insights in acceptable language, to appear more conventional than they are, because they've learned that most people aren't ready to hear the truth. Most people are too invested in their illusions, too identified with their roles, too afraid of the freedom that comes with seeing through the game. And, there's a kind of violence in waking someone up before they're ready. If someone is having a pleasant dream, you don't shake them awake unless the house is on fire. The person who sees too much understands this. They understand that awakening happens in its own time, that you can't force it, that everyone is exactly where they need to be in their journey. But still, their very existence is a kind of invitation, a possibility, a door standing open. And for those who are ready, who are beginning to question their own dream, who are starting to feel that something isn't quite right with the official version of reality for these people, encountering someone who has seen through the veil can be life-changing. It can be the catalyst for their own awakening. However, for those who aren't ready, who are deeply invested in the dream, who have built their entire identity and sense of security on the collective hallucination for these people, the awakened individual is a threat that must be neutralized. And society has many ways of doing this. The most obvious way is simply to ignore them, to dismiss them as crazy or impractical or naive. Oh, that's all very nice and mystical, people say, but you can't live that way in the real world. You've got bills to pay, responsibilities to meet, a life to live. As if the awakened person isn't living. As if they're somehow less engaged with reality rather than more engaged. But you see, this dismissal reveals the real fear. What if they're right? What if there is another way to live that doesn't involve all this striving and suffering and anxiety? What if you could be in the world fully without being of it, without being trapped by it? This possibility is so threatening that it must be dismissed immediately, without examination. Another way society deals with those who see too much is to try to capture them, to domesticate them, to turn them into another part of the system. Oh, you've had a spiritual experience? Wonderful. Why don't you write a book about it? Give some lectures. Start a retreat center. And before you know it, the person who saw through the game has become a player in a new game, a spiritual seeking game, which can be just as much of a trap as any other game. Or society might try to explain away their insights. Oh, you think you've awakened? That's just a neurological phenomenon, or a psychological state, or the result of meditation practice, as if giving it a label somehow diminishes it, somehow makes it safe and manageable and less threatening. But these labels are just more concepts, more ways of avoiding the direct encounter with what is. The deepest fear that people have about those who see too much is not that they're wrong, but that they're right, that there really is another way of experiencing reality. That the anxiety and suffering and endless striving that characterizes most human life is not necessary, not inevitable, not the price we have to pay for being conscious beings. Because if that's true, then you've been had. You've been living in a prison of your own making. You've been taking seriously what doesn't need to be taken seriously, and ignoring what really matters. You've been, in the words of Thoreau, living a life of quiet desperation when you could have been dancing. And nobody wants to realize this. It's too painful. It's easier to dismiss the awakened ones as deluded, impractical, or dangerous than to consider that they might be seeing something you're missing. It's easier to stay in the comfortable prison of your familiar suffering than to step into the terrifying freedom of not knowing who you are. But here's the beautiful paradox. The awakened person isn't actually threatening you. They're not trying to take anything from you or impose anything on you. In fact, they see you more clearly and compassionately than you see yourself. They see that you're playing a role, yes, but they also see what's behind the role, the same consciousness, the same awareness, the same fundamental being that they've discovered in themselves. They see that you're afraid, and they understand why. They see that you're suffering, and they have compassion. They see that you're lost in the dream, and they remember what that's like because they were lost too once. They're not judging you. They're simply being what they are. And their being serves as a mirror in which you might, if you dare to look, see your own true nature reflected. The fear that people feel toward those who see too much is really the fear of their own freedom. It's the fear of discovering that they've been playing a game all along that they could have stopped any time they wanted. It's the fear of responsibility, not the conventional responsibility of paying bills and meeting obligations, but the deeper responsibility of being the author of your own experience, the creator of your own reality. You see, as long as you believe that reality is fixed and solid and you're just a small, separate individual trying to survive in it, then you're off the hook. You can blame circumstances, other people, your past, your genetics, society, anything. But if you wake up and see that you are not separate from reality, that you are reality experiencing itself, then suddenly you can't blame anyone or anything. You are it. And that's a terrifying realization for most people. The person who sees too much has accepted this responsibility. They've stopped arguing with reality, stopped resisting what is, stopped pretending to be other than what they are. And in that acceptance, in that surrender, they found a kind of freedom that others can scarcely imagine. Not freedom from circumstances. They still have bodies that get sick, relationships that have difficulties, problems to solve. But freedom from the psychological suffering that comes from resistance, from wanting things to be different than they are, from identifying with a separate self that must constantly defend and promote itself. This freedom is attractive and terrifying in equal measure. It's attractive because everyone wants to be free of suffering. But it's terrifying because it requires dying, not physically, but psychologically. It requires the death of the ego, the death of the story you've been telling yourself about who you are and what life is about. And nobody wants to die, even metaphorically, even when that death would lead to a greater life. So people fear those who see too much because they represent a kind of death, the death of illusion, the death of the familiar, the death of the known. But they also represent a kind of birth, the birth into reality, into presence, into your true nature. And birth, like death, is frightening, even when it's exactly what needs to happen. The tragedy is that this fear causes people to miss the very thing they most deeply long for. Beneath all the striving and achieving and worrying and planning, there's a deep longing for peace, for wholeness, for coming home to yourself. The person who sees too much has found that home, not by going anywhere or becoming anything, but simply by waking up to what they already are. And their message, though it's often unspoken, is simply this: you can wake up too. You don't have to live in fear. You don't have to take the dream so seriously. You don't have to spend your whole life trying to become something other than what you already are. You are it. You've always been it. You could never be anything else. But this message, this truth, is too simple, too immediate, too obvious. People want something more complicated, more difficult, more distant. They want a path to follow, a goal to achieve, something to do. And the awakened person says, there's nowhere to go and nothing to do because you're already there and you're already doing it. And people find this infuriating because it pulls the rug out from under their entire project of self-improvement and spiritual seeking. So they fear those who see too much, because these awakened ones reveal the cosmic joke, the divine comedy, the ultimate irony, that what you're seeking is what's seeking, that the seeker is the thought, that you are what you're looking for. And once you get the joke, once you really see it, you can't help but laugh. But until you get it, The laughter of the awakened sounds like mockery, and their peace looks like indifference, and their freedom feels like an accusation.